Weekly New Orleans Saints updates with Nick Underhill on OTB are brought to you by former LSU Tiger and attorney Chris Perrette.
Yo, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Off the Bench. You just heard it right there. We got our guy, Nick Underhill. NewOrleans.football is the site. Go sign up today. All the best inside information from the Saints, the best takes, the best content. And when you sign up for the site, you are supporting journalism directly. You're supporting Nick directly. It's not going to any corporate overlords. This is going directly Nick, making it as good as he possibly can. So to go to NewOrleans.football. Nick, what's up, man? How you feeling? Are you in Mobile right now?
Yeah, I'm here. Just getting ready to go out here, watch these practices, maybe see what's up with the Saints and the coaching search and all that. But, yeah, it should be a busy week for the team.
Yeah, so we are here as well, so I'll see you out there in practice. Very excited about that. But, Nick, the big news, Tom Brady just making it official, retiring. And, I mean, I want your perspective on this, dude, because all of a sudden, you know, we're talking about do the Saints rebuild, what do they do, blah, blah. Well, all of a sudden, I mean, game on, right? Like where does the NFC South power hierarchy stand with the news of Brady retiring?
I think it's completely upside down right now. You know, I think Tampa Bay, I think they're going to go through a lot. We talk about the Saints and they're losing some of their guys, and we kind of know how they're going to approach it. And they're going to fight to hold on and be as good as they can be. This isn't a team where it's in their DNA to fold or to rebuild or try to tear it down to the studs. They're going to try to keep going with what they got by any means necessary. And I think that's one of the reasons that Dennis Allen's probably the smart money bet to be the next head coach of the Saints. And they'll try to keep rolling and building on the players that they have. With Tampa, I think that's a situation where you might see some of that tearing down, and it's not necessarily even because of the guys in the front office. I don't know if they have the same drawing power there. I mean, there was a report this week about Bruce Arians telling his coaches that they were free to seek lateral moves to other teams. Quarterback coach on one team, the quarterback coach on another team if you wanted. And that's not a thing that happens. So I think that they kind of see the writing on the wall a little bit and realize that they're going to be in a extreme period of transition. And at this point, it's extremely wide open. If you're a team with a top 5 defense, I think you feel pretty good about your chances in this division and feel like it's really not that far off, even if you did lose your Hall of Fame quarterback and potentially Hall of Fame coach within the last 2 years. I don't feel like the Saints are that far off, and I think this is something that helps them tremendously because, I mean, look, they've been getting 2 wins against the Bucs every year since Brady went there, so I don't know how much it changes that, but I mean, they aren't going to be racking up wins against everybody else. So I think it puts the Saints in a much better position to go through this period of transition now that Brady and potentially the Bucs are kind of out of there from the top of the division standings.
Well, okay, and there's so much to unpack there because you're right. Like Dennis Allen feels like the smart money favorite, and the key detail in all of this is that it's a different situation with Sean Payton walking away, not being fired, right? So you still have a staff that you love and guys that you want to hold on to, like a Carmichael or an Allen, I guess because it makes so much sense to continue with DA and keep a lot of this culture and everything else we've been talking about, to keep that all in place. What do you think it would take to go outside of that? If you were going to make a move and change head coaches, like what scenario, how could that come about?
I think they'd have to be blown away by somebody, and that's definitely not impossible. They had dinner last night with Brian Flores. They're going to interview him today. They're going to interview Darren Rizzi. They're going to interview Aaron Glenn. And these are all people that are extremely impressive individuals, and I think would all be really good head coaches of this team. I just think that DA, you've been around DA, you keep him, you preserve your staff. Like the one thing that people keep bringing up to me, they'll be like, "Oh, go get Eric Bieniemy and keep DA in his role." DA might not be agreeable to staying in that role. The head coach might not be agreeable to having the team dictate who the assistants are if it's somebody from outside. Like there isn't this guarantee that you can hire an offensive coach and keep this great thing you have going with your defense. It just doesn't necessarily always work like that. Now, I'm not saying that Dennis Allen wouldn't be agreeable to that, but I'm saying there's a very realistic scenario where he says, you know what, like, nah, I'm going to go be the DC somewhere else if you don't want me as the head coach. I played out the string here. You guys are good. Like a person like me, that's how I would react to that. I'm not saying everybody would, but I'm saying it's not an abnormal type of reaction. So I think if you want to keep going with what you got going, you want to keep all the assistants in place, you run it with Dennis Allen. And look, frankly, I think he's probably the best candidate. Like, we've spent a year, 2 years talking about how they're on borrowed time with him, that he's going to get his chance. He's going to have to go somewhere. And look, that's cool if somebody else doesn't really see what he has and they aren't hot after him across the league. But I think the people in New Orleans see what they have. And the thing that struck me the most about Sean Payton's press conference when he was leaving, at the very end, all these years, still talking about how he messed up, having Rob Ninkovich in his building, didn't see it,
dude,
let him
it was
go.
crazy.
So,
he couldn't
yes,
escape
but
it,
like,
Nick. He just kept talking about it.
But like, that's the thing. If you have the right guy in your building and you let him out and he goes and succeeds somewhere else, that's kind of an unforgivable thing. If you give DA a chance, he's not the guy. 2 years from now, you fix it. It's really not a big deal. You can overcome that. And the Saints have the power structure where Mickey Loomis's future isn't tied on being risk adverse and not getting anything wrong. If they hire DA and DA doesn't work out, Mickey Loomis is still going to have a job. So he doesn't have to do this risk calculation that Poles does in Chicago. He's trying to prove himself. He gets his head coach hire wrong, and he goes with the guy that was a 4-win coach in Oakland. He's not getting a second chance. But the Saints don't have to do things like that. They can make the good, smart, logical choice, go with the guy that's in their building, give him the chance to show that he's rehabilitated himself and learned what he didn't know and move forward. So, absolutely, I think he's the best choice for the job.
Well, and you mentioned Mickey Loomis, Nick, and we talked about it a bit on the show yesterday, but it's, so often we look at quarterback-coach combinations, and when they split up, right, we always want to see, who's going to have more success? Belichick, Brady, Breeze, Peyton, et cetera, et cetera. The GM can kind of get lost in the shuffle a little bit, and like you said, Mickey Loomis is unique in how he's tied into the power structure of the Saints, that his job is very safe. But, like, what do you make of the opportunity for Loomis here? Like, what happens to his legacy and kind of how he is viewed if he ushers the Saints into a new, if he can continue this level of winning outside of the Peyton era?
You're right that he does get overlooked a lot, and just kind of, the success of this organization, and he has made those decisions. He brought in Sean Payton, he empowered him to run the organization how he wanted. He stuck with them through, some tough times, and that proved to be the right decision as well. And if you're right, if he hits it again, he's going to be one of the longer tenured guys. Win total is going to be through the roof. And all of a sudden, I think you do have to start looking at him as somebody that's a little bit more revered than he is right now. And so the thing I think that works against Loomis is that maybe he isn't necessarily your classic football type guy, but I think that he's really kind of more the prototype of what a GM could be, or maybe even should be. He was, when he was in Seattle, like, they were kind of at the forefront of creating analytics and back when they called it the computer department and everything, and they were doing all that stuff before everybody else. And that's really kind of his background. And he's done a really good job of putting a structure around himself. And yeah, if he gets this right and they keep going and there's really no downturn, I think that people really do need to start talking about him in a different light and not just giving all the credit to Sean or Jeff Ireland or whoever else. Like, he is someone that deserves more reverence than he probably gets right now.
All right, Nick, I want to get away from the coaching and executive talk real quick to talk quarterback, because like 5 minutes ago, Kenny Pickett walked by us, and obviously that's a target if you're going to go quarterback in the draft. I think a lot of Saints fans would probably be excited about. I don't know if he's going to be there at 18. Probably have to make some moves there. But what's the latest kind of you're thinking or hearing about the quarterback position? Obviously, if you bring DA back, that's someone that knows Jameis Winston. I know Jameis isn't under contract. Obviously knows Taysom Hill as well. Do you still think that they'll go that route? Do you think maybe the quarterback in the draft can kind of go away? Is it like a more likelihood that it went away if Dennis Allen was the coach, just knowing he knows the other quarterbacks?
I think it still goes towards Jameis, just because that's probably the most likely way to fill it, and the easiest way to fill it is to bring him back. The one thing I have heard is, over the last week or so, is that Jameis was Sean's guy. So I do think that at least it's a little bit more up in the air in the direction they go. But I personally, like, if you gave me the keys, you let me make the Mickey Loomis, Jeff Ireland decisions, I'm trying to draft picket and I'm signing Jameis, and I go with Jameis for the short term, and I got my guy that I'm developing and letting develop and compete But I think and I don't want to insult like the Jameis people or anything like that, or Jameis himself, but like I do think that you do just need to keep trying different options at that position until you have somebody that you look at and you say this is the 10-year starter. And as good as Jameis was last year, I didn't look at a guy and say this is absolutely the 10-year starter. Give him the $30 million a year. You're looking at him and you're like, this is solid. What can you do with better players? Still need a little more evidence. I think he did everything he could have done in that situation, but to no fault of his own, the situation wasn't really set up to really reach definitive conclusions. So, outside looking in, I can't reach that point on him. So I would still have all doors open. I'd still be calling on Russell Wilson. I'd still be calling on Aaron Rodgers. I'd still be looking at everybody in the draft. And, also Jameis is still a good option. And I do think you could probably give him, a 2-year deal, bring him back and see how it goes, throw in a lot of incentives. And if he proves you wrong and you draft somebody in the first round and guess what? You got your guy and you don't need this first-round pick. That's cool. You can still trade him and get your picks back. So I don't really think that there's anything lost there. And, I just think that we kind of saw last year that you need to be prudent and do everything you can at that position. And really, there's nothing that's ever too much. The cost is never too high. The amount of resources at the position is never too high. I mean, we just watched the playoffs. I mean, Joe Burrow comes out of nowhere and takes a team that had no hope for 20, 30 years, and they're in the Super Bowl 2 years later. And, you can win like San Francisco, but it sure is a lot easier when you got the guy, under center that's leading your team.
Yeah, well, and so you mentioned Jameis being a Peyton guy, and I don't know if this is fair or not, Nick, but outside looking in, it feels like Taysom is the ultimate Peyton guy, right? That he's just been fascinated with his skill set and how to employ it. What happens to Taysom Hill in a post-Peyton Saints?
I don't know if you guys listen to rap, but it's kind of like Sean's Jay-Z and Taysom's like his Memphis Bleak. Like as long as Jay-Z's cashing checks, Memphis Bleak's always going to be good. And he took care of him on the way out the door, which is man, good for Taysom. And I think that you got to get into a situation where he's doing what he, like, we know what he's not at this point. Like, he could be a fine backup quarterback. I think we all know he's not a starting quarterback. And I think you got to get him into a position where he's doing the things that he's actually good at. I think you need to, hey man, go focus on being a tight end. Like this is what you're going to do in this offense moving forward. And you got your shot, and this is what it is now. And I think he can earn that $10 million a year at tight end. But I think you just kind of got to get him where he needs to be. He's had ample opportunity to prove it, and I just don't think it's gotten there yet. And I don't want to like insult the guy, but we've seen it, and I don't know. Like, I'm sure you guys probably agree too. Like, you don't look at him and say this is the guy that should be the quarterback build around him. Yeah. So I mean, if that's not the outcome, you got to try something else and let this guy be good at what he's probably best at.
Yeah, and I mean, I completely agree. Like, that's the way to earn that $10 million price tag. Nick Underhill, New Orleans Football. I mean, you hear him every Tuesday here. Shout out Chris Pratt, Lofts, Oshie Brown for helping us bring Nick on. But this is why you need to sign up for the site, dude. The absolute best. The content is undefeated. It's worth every penny. And like I said, you're not supporting any corporate overlord. You're supporting Nick directly making this work happen. New Orleans Football. Crazy offseason coming up. Nick is completely dialed in. Go sign up for the site. Nick, look forward to seeing you this week in Mobile, man.
Yeah, I'll see you guys out there.
All right, man. Take it easy, Nick Underhill. Coming up next, more Off the Bench.